right, here we are on another episode of Evolving the Conversation podcast. It's
Ooh,
been a little
do I
bit.
have any of that stuff going?
I don't think so. Oh, you do.
I
How do
do.
I get that?
I'm
Hmm.
not sure if I have to enable it for you or you have to enable it for yourself. You have to
No.
create your own love.
Okay.
It's
Create my own love.
your
Is
responsibility.
the AI like if I don't have this, I'm not creating my own love?
I don't know. Is that the only one I get?
Oh, you get the fireworks. Nice. I don't get anything.
That's
Oh
like,
well.
I'm not sure how, like two thumbs up. I don't know if that's like a whole entire firework display show.
I wonder. Yeah. Oh, AI.
I guess it all depends.
Yeah, so it's been a little bit since we recorded last. I am in a new space in a new state, and yeah. Um, but before we begin today, I just want to mention our sponsor who makes this white sage smudge spray and makes different types of health and wellness and beauty products. And so, as advertised before, it got this white sage smudge spray, and it brings pleasant spirits into the space. And I always like to start this before our podcast just to smell pleasant and to connect with the plant medicine spirits that are in it and to invoke those spirits to guide this podcast and to have us have a positive outcome. And so you can go on youngyouorganics.com and you can find this product and all other kinds of products on here for, you know, whatever it is that you need that this site offers with the smudge spray and hair care, skincare, and diet and detox. So yeah, get yourself some. How's my how's my
Go do that.
advertising?
Makes sense to me.
Me too.
Yeah, just sharing the good word about a useful product. I do love the way it smells. I hope one day that through the magic and power of technology that I could smell what someone else is smelling.
Smell-o-vision.
Yeah.
That'd be great for cooking shows.
Yeah, that would. I was just thinking about that when you talked about the smell. I don't have the bottle here. It's in my car. I sprayed my armpits the other day.
It works
Like,
equally as well as a
oops.
deodorant. Spray it
Well,
on.
I don't wear deodorant, so I guess I guess I have been using it as deodorant.
Yeah, I've got a dieta coming up soon, so I'm gonna be not wearing deodorant for I don't know however many days I do the dieta.
Oh, I just don't use it no matter if I'm dieting or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I go off and on with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I enjoy the one that I get. It smells really good. It smells like a pine tree. I like smelling like a pine tree. You know what's funny? It was like before I went down to Peru, I'm like, no deodorant, like no fragrance. And then when I got down there, there was like this really, it was just herbal essence, right? And it was like, I used it. Like, oh my God, this smells amazing. Because like when you're on dieta, you're not using any of that. And so like post dieta, I was like, I want it all. Give it to me, all
Really?
of it. I want to smell all of this fragrance. But I
Mm,
noticed that like sometimes if I get the chemical fragrance, that it just agitates my skin. So I got to get things that are more natural and not as chemically processed.
yeah, I'm not sure about that whole like category of fragrance. I think it's all kind of like unregulated stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why I mostly try and stay away from it. And then even the things that say like natural, I'm not exactly sure if I haven't looked into that, but like in terms of food, like a natural, I'm losing the word, natural flavoring, like It means it comes
Yeah,
from
what
something
is it?
like living, but it could be like, like otter poop or something.
Yeah,
It's
what is
just,
it, right?
yeah. So I kind of just take the same kind of like stance in terms of the products. Like, if it just says fragrance, even if it's natural, I just try not to use it.
Yeah, so you could avoid all of that and you can get the white sage smudge spray.
Yeah.
And really, what's in here? Purified water, white sage essential oil, clary sage essential oil, and it's therapeutic grade. Palo Santo, lemongrass, rosemary, some sea salt, and there's some blue apatite. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Blue apatite crystals. And yeah,
Yes, I mean that's literally all natural ingredients.
those are the real natural ingredients.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Vika, for crafting such a beautiful product
Yeah,
and
thank you,
safe.
Vika.
Safe product for your home, for your families, for the environment, for the kids, for your body.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Vika. So, we were going to talk about plant medicines today.
Yeah, our plan is to talk about some of our recent maybe insights or inspirations or realizations from our plant medicine ceremonies, our recent medicine ceremonies. I think I said recent a lot there.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Whatever.
Public speaking, it's not that easy.
No, it's certainly not. Even with the spirits helping me, step it up.
Spirits, help me speak
Come
publicly.
on. Come on. Do your duty.
I just as an aside, I notice with speaking in a public setting, and this podcast is a great teacher for that, is just to like take it slow and just like slow myself down. And if I need a pause, to take a pause. Pauses aren't a bad thing, even though typically, if someone takes a pause in public speaking, you're like, oh, this person they might not know what they're talking about. And really, they're just gathering their thoughts to gain even deeper states of clarity and deeper states of understanding.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I learned from Dr. Sam when I practice source code for somebody, when I'm coding them, that's the first rule. You slow down. It gives the time and the space for what's in through and all around us to come through, and for the other person to really get a good reflection of what you are sharing with them.
I think that's something the plant medicines teach too, is to slow down. I know in my my more recent ceremonies, like in the past 3 months, that's something that usually comes up is to just slow down. I remember in the mushroom ceremony a few months back, it was that same teaching in the ayahuasca ceremony of just like to really take it slow. Like when I get up, just like take it slow, take your time. There's no rush. There's no rush in anything. You don't have to
Yeah.
rush, even though like people will come at you, you gotta get this done really quick. Like, yeah, there might be sort of like that timeline, and you might meet it, you might not meet it, but if you rush through it, your work isn't gonna be as good. I can promise you that.
So how are you taking your time?
I'm taking my time by just recognizing the infiniteness of it. I mean, that's a mystery school teaching that we've been learning of how to recognize the universe as an infinite amount of time. And
Where are you
to
recognizing that?
where?
Yeah.
Where am I? Here in the
Like, how do
universe.
you recognize it? Like, what's a thing that helps you recognize it?
Hmm, good question. I recognize that like this scientific universe, that the numbers that we have are our own invention, and that the infinite amount of time in this universe literally means that we can spend the whole amount of time counting and we'll never get to an end point of it because we only have so many numbers in our human brain until it just is like, okay, that's it. That's the last number that we have. It doesn't go any further. And then beyond that is just the infiniteness of it. So no matter how much I want to count, and it's useful, like obviously, like numbers are very useful, but um we were talking about this the other day, how, with numbers, we get presented this dualistic idea of like one meaning something, zero meaning nothing. And it's not really like that in the universe. And it's just this infinite amount of something. And so, really, just focusing on that, I'm able to just relax and I don't have to really rush through anything. Or if maybe sometimes like if I'm in a hurry, um, the plants usually just step in and say, slow down. How
Okay,
about
so
you? How do you recognize that? What's your
well,
methods?
I do it more based on like a feeling. I've had the understanding that like the culture and you know the clock time, the linear time seems to have one way of functioning, and then everyone functioning within that wants like things done right away and expects you to answer emails as soon as you get them and is busy and piles on stuff to do. So I recognize that. And then I try to feel how I'm moving in that. So there could be times where like I notice I'm talking fast or I'm just moving faster than I'd want to, whether it's like a work task or, something like making dinner, like trying to rush through something. So for me, it started out as a lot of like this understanding, like a cognitive understanding or an idea that this is what's going on. And I brought it down to like more of the body level. Sometimes also like I'll notice like all right, I know this is one time it's kind of embarrassing to admit. It's like I felt like I gained weight or something, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go exercise right now. Like, like I have to take care of this. Like this thing, like that's not exactly right, needs to be taken care of, like right this instant. And so sometimes I get that feeling inside of me of this like urgency, I suppose, that like this thing needs to be taken care of right now. And I try to just be like, okay, yeah. On one hand, this part of you feels like that just needs to be done, but honestly, like that's okay. And we could relax and slow down and calm down. I think too, like really connecting with my breath a lot of times when I realize that I'm like, all right, I'm gonna choose to go at my own pace and I'm gonna like be okay with that.
I know I think that's super important as far as just learning to go at your own pace. Because who else's pace are you really gonna go at?
Yeah, I think we just get sucked into, you know, when you're at school, you go at school's pace. When you're at a job, you go at the job's pace. When you have kids, it's easy to get sucked into their like, I need it right now, like their urgency, their emotional, you know, energy. So it's really easy if you don't have your own kind of sense of your own pace or maybe your own inner kind of like gravity. It's easy to get sucked up. And that's what we're always learning, kind of, I think, is to kind of override what is true or maybe what you wanted, what the natural impulse is for what the impulse that's coming from outside is.
I think the plants really teach that groundedness in the natural world of, like the tree outside is only going to be growing at the rate that it's growing. And I don't really think they're in competition with one another either. Like, I'm gonna grow faster than you. I
Oh
don't think it's
yeah, no.
exactly like that. And so, I think that lesson that the plants give of just, go at your own pace, because like that's where, the real true efficiency in the way that you move and in the motion throughout the day is really going to be. And I also think too that looking back when I have rushed things, that I wasn't exactly doing it in a way that was necessarily um, as good as if I would just, okay, take my time, even if like I don't get it done in this amount of time, that's okay. I can just, keep on working at it until, I get it done. I think that's okay too.
Yeah, I think that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely learned those lessons from the plants as well. I think it started maybe like with the Trinity Dieta and some lemongrass.
Yeah, and I think too, like you have to have like you have to have a strong personal autonomy, because those outside influences in our culture and in our society are going to, when you come up against that energy where it's like rush, 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 go, it's going to try to suck you into it. But if you have that personal autonomy just to say, no, I'm not going to do it, you have that decision.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta start recognizing it first.
Yeah, recognizing it. I think too, often I was unaware of it for a long time. The plants have actually awakened me to that rushing mentality.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So that's something you've been focusing on recently is slowing down.
Slowing down, and the plants have, it's not just the plants. There are other spirits teaching me these things, but the medicine spirits of the plants have been teaching me to fall in love with the process and just with life itself. And I mean, recently I was like going through like a pretty negative spell, and I think there was reason for it. There's tons of reasons for it, but then, the plants started really coaching me and the reasons to get out of that then too, and to like recognize what's causing it. So for me, I was just experiencing a lot of anger towards society itself and the way society is structured, and the fact that like I have to go and participate in a job to earn a living so that I could just keep living, and not necessarily wanting to go to that job itself and wanting to do other things. And so the plants have been just helping me to recognize, like, okay, there's some anger, and perhaps that anger is there because it's totally there. And it's because you're being forced into things that you don't particularly want to do. But that's not going to change the fact that you're the one deciding to do it. You have the decision not to do it, even though, like, it's the decision between like financially dead or financially alive.
I mean, that's kind of extreme. I guess there's other ways,
Sure, there's other ways of
like
framing it.
other like bits in the decision.
Yeah,
I mean, I get it. I know it's something like it is kind of life and death, like existential.
yeah. And so it's just more so of just like accepting it. And then, as I go through this transformative process to like really recognize how that the universe or God and this great spirit really does work for me instead of against me. So just like as a story, like this is really, it was really nice. Yesterday, I was going to eat my lunch at the job, and like I just brought a simple lunch. I'm just cleaning up my diet for an extended period of time, and so I just had some like oats and some bananas. I think that was it. And I was going, so like I was walking out the doors of like the back doors of the grocery store that I work at, and for I don't know, I just like I dropped my oats on the floor and they went everywhere. The one manager was there. He's like, "Oh, are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm good. I just dropped this. I don't know, Butterfinger moment." He went and he bought me more oats and he bought me more bananas. And it was just like, like that token of kindness where I was like, oh, wow, that was really nice. It was just like such a kind gesture. And I would have never had that experience of just like experiencing someone who was really kind to me if I wasn't going through that experience to begin with. And
Mm,
so
yeah.
it was just a moment of gratitude that I had for that guy and the universe in its totality.
That's good you were able to have that amidst something that you would like call bad.
Yeah, just like the lack of like wanting to be there, and then it's just like, oh, well, these people are just, you know, being kind. And I mean, it's nice to be around.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of like what we were just talking about, when you're moving so fast and then also and the like kind of like duality or like these stories, you're kind of like you said, like in a spell, right? Like you don't see the truth of it. All you really see is like the untruth, the untrue part. The part like if you're in the story of like this job sucks, all you see is suck. Whereas it could be like, all right, this isn't the job I want right now. And I understand that the system I'm living within right now is one in which I am required to participate with money. And I do need that for my survival. But like the spectrum of how you could approach that is varied and wide, and there's lots of help like with the medicine and with the spirits that you could ask for. And maybe it's not something that you wake up the next day and like the situation has changed to how you want it to, and you get to hold that one perspective and like all the other stuff, and I'm moving at my own pace and I'm going to create my own story, and I'm moving so slow that I could find like moments or bits and pieces where it doesn't feel like suck.
Mm, mm, yeah. There's one more thing I wanted to mention too, and then I want to get into your experiences recently with your plant medicines. The one thing I also too have been learning is when to give it a break, which I think goes back to like not rushing and resting. So this past weekend with cannabis, like I had a clear, distinct message that if I would consume any more that day, that I would be overusing it, and then I wouldn't be using it as a medicine.
Mm,
And so like I went big that day. I had like 20 grams of an edible, and then I smoked probably close to what would be a joint. I have like a really tiny bowl, and I smoked like 2 packs out of that. And yeah, it was just a very clear, distinct message of like, okay, no more. And then like let's also, integrate the work that I've been doing with training in the cannabis shamanism over the past uh year so far, or maybe a little bit less, of like really just using it like that once a week and using it in that type of framework of just okay, once a week, that's it. Because cannabis is like it's its own spirit, and it affects you differently than the other plant medicines. And I do find that if I would use it more than one day a week, that I wouldn't be getting the benefits from it.
yeah, I mean, granted, it's its own spirit. They all are. I think the thing with cannabis is like you could use it and then you could go about your day. And like, whereas if you took like, an effective dose of mushrooms.
Yeah, I would say you can go about your day to a certain extent. Like I wouldn't get behind the wheel. of a
No, but
car.
I mean, you could like make a dinner, you could watch your kids, you could watch TV, you could talk on the phone, you could read, you could draw, you could paint, you could dance, you could probably even do your
Yeah,
work depending on what your work is, you know?
yeah, yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah, that's like its own spirit type of thing. That's why I love it. I mean, I love them all for their own unique vibes, and cannabis definitely has a very special place in my heart. But
Yeah.
I wanted to like remain that special place and like that medicine for me. And when I'm ready to use it again, I can use it again. And it
Yeah.
might be a couple weeks that a break that I need, or however long.
I think there's like some kind of responsibility in using it responsibly and with some kind of um we talked about this before. There's like the discipline, like the teaching that you get from the plant. So I think there's some kind of like discipline, responsibility in terms of the relationship and the learning.
Yeah,
I mean, I think I'm kind of exploring that as well. Uh, Especially, with with how we use sanctuary now, I feel like not that the practice, whether it was like the plant medicine or the shamanism or the dieta was like very strict and rule based, but it was a little bit more so, I think, than it is now. And it's more kind of like there's a flexibility because everything is, I don't think everything is safe, but there's like a level of safety that was not available before. And I think too, kind of like what you were saying with the autonomy piece, that just as I've been practicing, right, like gaining my own autonomy over the practices and not like only listening to a teacher or what someone else tells me to do and like figuring it out for myself a little bit more.
mm-hmm. I love that part of Siddhartha where Siddhartha is in the illustrious Buddha's palace. I've said this before, but this is such a great teaching from Siddhartha, where he's at the illustrious Buddha's palace and he was about to leave the illustrious Buddha's palace. And he was talking to the illustrious Buddha, and he was saying, how you can teach me a great many things about the universe, illustrious Buddha, but the thing you can't teach me about is Siddhartha. And then
Mm.
that's when he went off to go explore Siddhartha and the pleasures of life and the pleasures you can gain. And I mean, we kind of saw the way that one played out, but then, I love that. I love that part of the book where it's just like, like with the teachers can expedite your process, but ultimately it's your own journey in which, you're exploring.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I also like I have the habit of being a rule follower.
Do you see? I'm the opposite.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
the rule
Oh yeah.
breaker.
I'm a
I gotta tame that.
I am a rule, well, I mean, I'm a recognized rule follower, so I try to
What does that mean?
It's like
Recognized
I know
rule
that I
follower.
that I have that tendency, so I have to, you know, be mindful of it. Be mindful of the rules that I'm following and the reasons why. Or I guess, yeah, just did I say mindful?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So the plant medicines have been teaching you about that personal autonomy, and
I mean, yeah, I suppose so.
how would you
Yeah.
describe it in your own words?
Well, I mean, I think that's something that I've been consistently practicing for a while. I would call it sovereignty, but I'm pretty sure we're like talking about the same thing. Just like knowing, I guess we could clarify that, like knowing within yourself, like what is good, what is a yes, what is a no, what you want, what you need, what you don't want, what you want to accept, what you want to say no to. Um, So yeah, I've been practicing that for quite some time. Um, You know, and it's so many, like, there's so many phases. There's like knowing what you want, but then having like the courage to ask somebody or tell somebody or trust that like you could say something and it could be received, and then kind of like, I don't know, either you get it how you want or you don't get it at all. So like trust that you could handle yourself, and then, like, the relationship is still like what it was. It doesn't have to affect things in any way. Um, I mean, I guess here is talking about like the sovereignty of my practice, my medicine and spiritual practice. But yeah, I suppose that it is something that's, I mean, I guess just like everything, it's going to be in constant development and nothing really is stagnant. Just the idea. Just the idea of stagnancy or stuckness. Although I suppose there is thing are things that are frozen inside of you. I don't want to like discredit that either. You know, like at a nervous system level, things are truly frozen sometimes.
Yeah, I understand what you mean about that with the stagnation. I guess well, I know the way I think about it is, it could be parts where it's unconscious that just doesn't want to change, or parts that may be conscious that just don't want to change and sort of resist that ever-changing aspect of the universe. I think that's something that Hamilton would say in his teachings of the universe is never the same twice. And so if we try to, um, you know, keep reliving the past, that we can never really quite do it because it's never going to be the same exact thing. And so in that, it creates a lot of illusions and delusions when we just try to maintain and relive the past over and over. Even though like that one thing might have been great, is,
Yeah.
accepting that it changes and it could, lead to even greaterness. I think that's like where just that, being open about
Yeah.
what's coming next.
I think I was meaning it more so even from not a not wanting to change, but a place inside of us that literally like is stuck. I think that could happen in the nervous system. Like parts of us like actually get frozen as part of our nervous system response, and then they need to be kind of addressed in a way that helps them to unstick.
Mm.
And then that's not to say that like other parts of us can't be changing at the same time, because they are, but then there is just like kind of a certain aspect of ourselves that hasn't kind of like grown and evolved with the rest of us. And then sometimes we can be like in that part living out like current day from that part, which I think that's a lot of like the, not necessarily illusion and delusion, but where like a lot of kind of confusion can come from.
Yeah, I see what you're saying now, like with that stuckness. I think that there's a term for that in the Amazon, but I forget exactly what it's called. But it's like where you just get stuck in fear, stuck in fright, and then it like really does wreak havoc on your nervous system. I've experienced that when I was held
Yeah.
at gunpoint, and then afterwards, just having like periods during ceremony where I would just like be like trembling, like my whole nervous system would just be like I would be so
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And then after a while, like I experienced the healing of it and of my nervous system through these different plant medicine ceremonies. And ultimately realizing then through the certain courses, like the total awakening course, of just understanding that holistic view of the past as, really being unbroken time from the single cell all the way until now. And then really those acute moments of trauma, like they really did happen. Like the whole past was real, but in that, the whole past was real. Like I've had like these like really scary experiences, but I've also more than just that, like that was just like little tiny little drop of like that super scary experience in comparison to like my whole past, which was, there's so many just incredibly pleasurable moments.
Yeah. I think it just speaks to like how multidimensional, even just as a person or like a being that we really are, right? Like there's the level of the nervous system, and then there's cognition, and then um, and it's all connected, but yet separate in a way that like sometimes the things aren't all knowing what the other parts are doing. You know what I mean? Not separate really, but there is sometimes some kind of like, I don't know, things are all working on like different levels.
Yeah. I want to get
Yeah.
into that further, but I really have to use the bathroom. I've been drinking too much water before this podcast, so give me one. We're back.
All right. I don't know what we're talking about.
You were saying we were talking about how that there can be experiences that could be pretty scary that could freeze the nervous system. And I was telling the story about how before that I was held at gunpoint and that it wreaked havoc on my nervous system then afterwards. And
Hmm.
then through the total awakening course of going through all of that and understanding how it's the brain that's causing the freak out of the past experience and really just focuses on that, like, acute trauma, and but to awaken the whole past and to see how that I lived throughout every moment up until now. And now I'm here living, telling the story of it, and how that knowledge in and of itself is very healing to the mind and to the nervous system, knowing that I could take focus off of just like that one acute trauma and that story of the past and just place it on the whole past instead of being so
Hmm.
segmented out of,
Okay.
all of it.
Okay, and so what I and then I think I was saying from there is like there's different like almost like levels. Like so for example, that happened to you with the gunpoint, so that's like too much. And so your nervous system kind of goes into a freeze. It doesn't know what to do at that point. And your brain could then like, okay, so you could, you know, heal from this. You could understand that happened in the past, it's not happening now. Now I'm safe. Like that's like cognitive, you could heal that part of the brain, but there's still like part in the nervous system where that like actually happened. And I think sometimes you could have all these like great cognitive insights, like, but you still have to really get the body get the body on board, or else you're kind of, I think there's things that are living in, I don't know if it's like different realities, different stages, states, I don't know, different time periods, just different like modes of operation, because all that stuff is like in your physiology too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Like it's one thing to recognize something cognitively, but then it's another to like
Perhaps that's where it
drop
starts.
it down into the body. Perhaps that's where what starts.
That's where it starts, where you heal that part of the brain that experienced that trauma, and then it just goes right down into the body. And so it's like getting the brain to recognize that, like, okay, that happened, but that is just one segment of the past, and you've lived through much more than that afterwards, and you're here living now, and no matter what trauma it is. And um, that recognition then gets the brain to stop freaking out and stop sending signals then to the rest of the body to be freaking out over this. And so it's not the brain freaking out the body or the rest of the body anymore. And so then that what I meant is it starts in the brain and then just goes down to the rest of the body for the rest of the body to just calm down and then to, recognize that we're here or I'm here and we're safe and that this is a safe space. And that goes back to what we were talking about too with the using sanctuary consciousness, but using it to code your own consciousness into safety. And so that as you go through living, your consciousness is coded in safety. And so how you interact with yourself and others is going to be a safe place too. And so it doesn't like require fighting or anything of that nature.
Yeah. I
Might
think
maybe
there's some
require defending, I
repatterning
don't
though
know.
to do. I think there's like repatterning of what's going on in the body still. And yeah, the brain and the body are connected. And yeah, like a freaking out brain equals a freaking out body. But and definitely like if the brain is calmer, you could let the body calm down and the body can calm down. But I think like just a little bit of that also needs like some tending to, you
How
know?
would you tend to it?
I mean, you have to pay attention to it. You have to start feeling, you know? You have to start feeling the like the terror that maybe you felt or the unsafety. I don't think it just goes away. I think that like that the energy that was like too much too soon that your body like
Mm-hmm.
froze up and clenched around, it's in the body still, you know? Like it's not here. It's like in the tissue. So this has to unwind and release. I don't know, and release has to, yeah, I think it's like the repatterning, because then that part of you kind of like then makes up all these other stories about how unsafe things are. And, I don't know.
I know what you're saying. I think though at some point, I think it's very mysterious in the way that it works,
Yeah,
but I
totally
think at
is.
some point it does get released. I think at some point what you just release it and your body is then starting to create new patterning, literally in the way you are physically recreating your body. And I think it repatterns out of that trauma.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing that you could um repattern it. I'm just kind of arguing the point that it's not just like a cognitive thing that like, oh, I could realize this and it'll just like trickle. It's not trickle down. It's like you actively have to then focus on the body piece and the feeling and like letting go like what's in there. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, we're on the same page. I think it's like
Yeah.
the only place that I might differ is that I think it's both. It's like it's the brain and then the rest of the body, and then the rest of the body and the brain all at one
Yeah, no,
time.
I agree that it's both. I'm just saying it's not just the brain. You have to do the work in the body too. It's not like, oh, I could realize I was telling myself this story and like the realization is enough. That's what I'm saying. The realization isn't enough. You
Mm.
have to also like do the work to um to feel safe because it's a feeling. I mean, it's the knowing, but it's also a sensation in your body. So like you got to work on maybe feeling safe again. Some people have to work on like not being even disassociated from their body, right? Like I could have this knowing, but if I'm like living outside of my actual like flesh for most of the time, I have to then do the work to like re-embody my body. Like some people's trauma is so much that like that's the safest thing is to disassociate from the body. So that's really all I'm saying is that it's both the brain and the body. The brain is definitely a really big part of it, but I think the body is a really big part of it too. Like you can't leave that piece of the workout. It
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
just happen automatically.
Oh yeah, we're on the same page. I totally agree with that statement. So how do you then, what practices could you have to then heal the rest of the body or get your nervous system to repattern out of the trauma.
Well, I think creating safety is really important, like knowing the feeling of it. And I think of like safety as feeling just like a place where you could rest your attention inside somewhere, anywhere that's um not like in this area. I mean, I guess it could be in your face, but like ideally like below, and just a place where you could, feel neutral even, feel peaceful, feel like ease, calm. I think of like a heaviness is that. So I like to use you know, I use like a relaxing breath, so something that would be a longer exhale than an inhale. I like to focus on gravity. I think you could do things like imagination practices where like you can imagine you're with the trees or like that you're dropping your roots down and you receive from the earth. I mean, you could be in nature. That's always really helpful. Like observing, I did this one practice with this teacher where we even just like looked at tree roots as being like really grounding, like just like observing tree roots. So I think there's like a lot of grounding practices that are helpful. Uh, and creating kind of like that feeling of safety, which I think it's kind of helpful to know like what you're moving towards. So you could sometimes get out of that like discomfort. Um yeah, I think like things that are relaxing kind of for me help to create safety, like holding a hot tea or getting under the covers. What about you? How do you create safety?
How do I create safety? Those are really good ideas that you had. I like that simplicity around just having a cup of tea and feeling the warmth of the cup of tea and just admiring nature for its beauty and getting out there. I I I know that when I get out in nature, my brain just relaxes, and so does the rest of my body. How do I create safety? Well, recently, I mean, with the mystery school, I've been learning how to just recode my understanding of what the universe is to be a safe place. And so I'm not really separate from the universe, nor are you. And I know this is very cognitive and mind-based, and I'm a very mental-based person, um, if you couldn't
A
tell.
lot of people are.
Yeah. And so it's really just about reprogramming my whole consciousness to just be safe. Like I don't have to go out and like fight anything. I don't have to really even argue about anything. And that I can hold myself in respect. I don't have to fight myself anymore. And that creates a safe place internally. And there is no separation between the internalness and the externalness other than just the words and the concept itself. And so, when I get around people, I am giving it my best to, you know, put down the arguments and really just like that, like fighting over ideology or whatever. That doesn't mean that I still wouldn't defend myself. Like if I recognize someone is saying something, you know, that, might not exactly be true, and I speak the truth, I don't really think then like I need to go and like defend like my stance on it. It's just like, okay, this is like the truth of what it is that I've experienced, whether you accept it or not, that's okay. I'm going to continue going about doing what I'm doing. And, that could just be that. And other ways that I create safety is, well, I use the spirits. I invoke really the archangels to surround me at all times, and I specifically focus on the archangel Michael to um, request that he guides me in safety, and that this archangel protects me at all times. And then I have different types of power animals, like my principal protective power animal, my principal guardian power animal, who in the morning I like to invoke to guide me throughout the day. And I've been really focusing on really a lot of what wealth and success means for me. And in that is like my whole well-being, really like my health, my relationship with myself, my relationship with my family, my friends, my community, how I'm living in this society, and to just guard and protect my well-being. And so like that's really cognitive based. And then I like to also too just like recognize moments where I can relax. Or even too like reframing, like if I'm at the job and like people are fucking going like nuts, that I don't have to participate in that nutsness. And I also think too, like that makes me an asset in a way where if I can have a calm, cool demeanor when other people are freaking out and I don't have to then be in a state of reaction, that cognitive awareness actually creates a safe space in me and then around me. I think
Yeah.
that reactionary piece, is something that I've been recently learning, both in and out of the plant medicine experiences, although it's kind of hard to tell which is the in and the out with it anymore. But but not reacting when someone is in a state of reaction around you, I think that creates a calmness in the space internally. And I think also two people can really pick up on that.
Yeah.
And it's not
Probably.
easy. Like
They're
I'm
not
not
too
saying like I'm
reactionary.
yeah, I'm not saying like I'm perfect at this or by any means, but it is what I'm working on.
Yeah. Well, it's all practice. I mean, yeah, it's just all practice. I
It's all
realize
practice.
I do also, invoking the sanctuary, which creates safety, and I'm always telling God to like turn my fear off, turn my trust on. Yeah, all your stuff reminded me of that.
Have you noticed when you do that, you know, it really turns the trust on in yourself to be able to know what to do in the moment?
I feel like I've been thinking about, even though I was saying how like my sovereignty is something that's still um still a work in progress, that the trust in myself is probably like the last thing that's getting done, right? So like the trust started, okay, I decide to trust this person, and then I go on the process journey of learning to work with plant medicine, learning to work with spirit. So like I go on the journey of trusting spirit, I go on the journey of trusting medicine, I go on the journey of uh like knowing God more. Okay, I can trust God. Okay, I can trust the sanctuary. Oh, like self-trust? Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, that's like some, I think that's like the last, not to say the last piece, and then I'm like, okay, I trust. I'm done. I've reached like, I got the gold star. Wait, where's the like thumbs up for that? That deserves like fireworks. Seriously, though, that will deserve fireworks.
Yeah.
But I think for myself, like trusting myself is one of the last bits. So actually, I had this ceremony, it was last week, and the person who was sitting for me, was like, you could have your own knowing. It wasn't exactly what they said. It was something like, you're allowed to know. And in my body, I could feel, I'm like, no, that's not true. So I really just sat with that. Um, like it just felt like it wasn't even like my head was saying like no. I could feel how like I didn't believe that in my body. And so during the ceremony, that's like what I was working on. Part of it was like, yeah, I can have my own knowing. Of course I can. Like, and then I could trust that knowing and I could act on that knowing and I could share that knowing. So while I've been working on trust a lot, and I've definitely seen like a payoff from it as well. It's still like the self-trust pieces. It's like I gotta pull that one up a little bit. Or we're still like in process of.
We're all working through our own things at our own time.
Yeah, I mean, who's not, right? Like if you're gonna tell me you're not doing anything, then okay.
Yeah, I mean, maybe for some people, like that trust in the self comes first, and then the trust in, what's beyond the self comes second, and then, the trust in people then comes third, or maybe for some people it's like all at once. I don't know, but
Yeah, I don't know how it goes for other people. I just know it's something that's how it worked for me, and it really has been something like I had to actually actively work on.
same here. I think for me too, it also first came in like the trust of God, and then, realizing that I'm really not separate from God, and that if I can trust in God, well, I can trust in myself too.
Mm,
And I might not always have the answers, and I'm certainly not knowing of what's coming next, but I know that I have an inner capacity to be able to handle it.
mm. Yeah, I like that. That's oftentimes like how I try to like orient myself to like forgiveness or to understanding or to yeah, just like looking at other people. It's like, all right, if God looks at it this way, I could look at it that way too. Or like I could resource God to help me do that.
And
Resource source.
I've really been working with the divine ascended master, Jesus Christ, a lot recently to just be able to love myself. And I mean, what better teacher than the one of the greatest spirits of love of all time?
Yeah. The other day before I went to bed, I usually like I'll think about God and uh do some praying. But I was like imagining in my head that I was like at dinner with God and Mary and Jesus and they were just like taking
Yes.
care of me. I'm like, this is amazing. Like you could just all do my reparenting for me. Thank you very much.
I love that. That's so good. Oh, I
Uh-huh.
gotta have that imagination tonight too. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. What
Mm-hmm.
were you eating?
I don't know.
There's just food
Whatever.
there.
I was eating the Eucharist. I was like, Mary, this is really flavorless. Can you choose some salt next time?
Oh, that's funny.
It's like, God, you got to get a better recipe than this. Come on.
Please
Isn't that funny?
put
Like they
some
made the
salt in there.
Eucharist like so flavorless.
I don't wait, I'm like kind of confused right now. What's the Eucharist
Oh,
again?
oh, oh. That's I don't know, in the Catholic Church, that's like the symbol, the representation of Jesus's body. So when
The
you go up
wafer?
to yeah, the wafer. So when you
Okay.
go up to receive communion, you receive this like kind of like matzah, but not as textured. It's like flat. It's literally like a flat, like flat tasting, flat in shape piece of bread, piece
You
of
know what?
host wafer.
You know what? Yeah, right. It's just like plain little. When I was in church, they would actually have like it would kind of be like a pita bread. They just take
Oh,
it off.
really?
Yeah, and then you just like dunk it in some like grape juice.
Oh, I
Because then
mean,
you
at
actually
least
win.
at least there you're like, oh, this is like some sustenance. Like a
Yeah.
pita. I like pita.
Me too. You know, I was thinking too, like, why don't we just like have our own, like, if we want to celebrate Jesus Christ and all of what he has to teach about, like, just like gathering in a community together and being loving and kind and gentle with one another and just like being about each other's greater good, like, I don't think we really necessarily have to go based on the teachings of the church to be able to do that. Like, why not have like a steak dinner and some wine or whatever it is that you like? That's your favorite meal.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you can do anything in honor of anyone or anything or bring anyone into the party.
Yeah, I'm sure Jesus would be down with that.
Yeah. He probably liked, did they eat steak then?
I'm sure they
I
had
don't
some kind of
know.
meat.
Yeah, some kind of meat,
Maybe it was more like lamb and
like a
sheep,
lamb or a goat or something.
goat.
Yeah. Or
I
maybe
don't
like
know.
fish. He was a fisherman. He ate
Fisherman.
fish. Probably ate some fish.
I was thinking, like, I wonder if Jesus Christ ever drank ayahuasca.
I mean, ayahuasca was in the Amazon or is from the Amazon, so I'm not sure if at that time he drank ayahuasca. But that is like before him was like the Dionysus, and
Hmm.
I think there were all those like whatever they were using back then. I actually worked with a teacher who, I mean, I don't want to say these are her words, but from what I understand stood from her words is that Jesus was like the not reincarnation of Dionysus, but like the next iteration of his story, let's say.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Have you ever like heard or read about the mythology of Dionysus?
I believe so.
There's some really good online resources. I'm going to send you some links later, but some of those stories are nuts. Like going onto a ship and like everyone realizing that he's a god and then like turning into I think a tiger and then like everyone just like running off the ship. Like yeah, Dionysus has some crazy mythology. I love it.
I'll have to dive into that.
Like the maenads that follow him around teaching wine.
Wine. Wine.
And apparently too, like that, like the wine that they would make, it wasn't always from just grapes. Like they would ferment like tree barks and all kinds of things, and they would have like this concoction that would be like really psychedelic. I've heard they were like putting like mushrooms in it too, and
Mm.
all these kinds of different types of things in there. And then I
I
think,
mean,
man, I would have liked to try
yeah.
that.
Like, why wouldn't they be using plant medicine? It's not like we're modern and like we use plant medicine, you know?
Right.
We're like,
I mean,
oh,
how old is ayahuasca? I've heard ayahuasca's been around since before Christ and Buddha have walked the earth.
yeah, I mean, well, like the earth and most stuff that hasn't been created by man was here before us in terms of like, like hybrid plants and things like that.
But like I mean like the knowledge of like combining all of these plants to then make ayahuasca. I think I've heard, that there are, I'm pretty sure I've heard Mr. Hamilton say this, that there are some kind of like pot shards with the depiction of ayahuasca on it that date back from I forget how long, but before Christ walked the earth and Buddha, which I find fascinating. Just to yeah, like we think like yeah, like these plant medicines are like modern. No, they're really not.
Yeah, they're just kind of like, well, the resurgence happening now. Hey.
Yeah, I think it is um, becoming more popular. I think people need it. I think people needed to like break away from a lot of societal conditioning. And I don't mean like that there's like some like mastermind henchman with like pulling like puppet strings. I just think like that there has been conditioning that hasn't always been based in truth, and then we're forced to believe it, and that it creates a lot of it just creates a lot of havoc in the mind. And I think really, for me anyway, personally, that's where I've experienced the healing with the plant medicines is to be able to rework my patterning and the way I think that isn't so believing of then the societal conditions that I've been conditioned with.
Yeah. I was listening to this I like this girl Mallory. I don't remember her last I don't know how to say her last name. Who I think her business is Homebody Somatics. And I was listening to this training she did the other day where she was talking about how like so much is really possible, but we've been so conditioned into like this is what's possible, like into a box, let's say, or into linearity, that even when we think about what's possible, it's still like really conditioned into or by all the like constraints that have been put on us. So even if you're like, yeah, like have the biggest dream you could have, or still, I'm not saying you are or I am or that person down the block is, but like in general, probably most people are like still operating. I don't know if what I just said makes sense.
No, no, keep going with it.
No,
It
no,
makes
no.
sense.
I know I'm like I'm not saying you're this way, but then I'm saying but most people are. That's the part I think didn't make sense. Most people like the dominant like mode of operation for people is so like in the box that even if you're like, to say like, yeah, like what's the biggest thing you could think of, like what's like in the realm of possible, it's still like conditioned. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think what we're talking about are belief systems. So, if you are solely in a belief system in the way that you're thinking and that you believe that, it's like only this one thing that's possible, well, then that's really, how you create your worldview. And I think it takes going back to the autonomy. I think it takes some amount of autonomy to say, ask the question, like, is there really more to what's going on, or is this really it? And I think like that is like that like wedge that just kind of like opens things up for you to be able to then start to question, like, what is it that are my beliefs? And are these beliefs grounded in what's actually true? That's really where I love the shamanic training in the sense that it really helped me to read out and continually to investigate my own belief system, my own dogmas, my own ideologies, so that I can release them as they come up, so that I can just have that true understanding of what spirit is without the belief of it. And or sort of like that middleman of ideology or dogma to be able to understand the universe around me and me and the universe and part of it.
Yeah, and a lot of those um, beliefs or people are just doing their best trying to come up with like explanations for what happened. But then there's like yeah.
And maybe too, like those sort of systems of thought, they might have, been more understandable and sensible for people who lived a long time ago because that's what they were dealing with then. But I mean, if we fast forward all the way up until now, for whatever ideology that might be like a really, really old ideology, perhaps there was some merit to it then. But just, as we evolve as a species, things are constantly happening that are new that couldn't even be accounted for back then. And the use of language, too, I think was much different.
Yeah. I mean, there's merit for everything. I'm trying to think of their names. I used to listen to this podcast by a couple, a husband and wife, Heather Weinstein?
Oh, and Brett
Oh,
Weinstein?
Heather Hying, I think her name is.
Oh,
It's Brett Weinstein's brother, I think, and his wife
okay.
Heather. I
I
can't
think
think
I've
of
watched it.
I can't think of what the podcast is. But anyway,
Dark
they
Horse?
always yeah,
Aha.
they always use this analogy, I guess is the word, where like you're walking in the woods and you come to a fence. Like you don't just take down the fence. Like there is obviously, or maybe it's not obvious, but there is probably or likely a good reason that somebody put that up.
I like that.
And like let's investigate what that is before we totally like say like no, that's stupid. I don't know what that's doing there. It has no sense. They have no values, right? So I think
Right.
that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, you know, when like Newtonian science was created, that was modern and it made sense and it was as correct as people could understand with what they had. And then that created like a whole bunch of stuff. And it's all kind of like incorrect, but kind of correct. Or not correct, like parts of it are right, parts of it are wrong. But it still like shapes our mind. It's what shaped the mind. So it's kind of I don't know if inadvertent is the right word. Unavoidable. Unavoidable. Let's say unavoidable.
I'm getting a knock at my door. We're gonna have to
Okay.
pause 1 second. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so it's not inadvertent, but like that's how our mind's programmed. And so like what you were saying, right, you need that kind of like wedge or something that's gonna like make you realize like, maybe something's not exactly like right here. And then you go on the journey and you reprogram.
Simple as that.
Yeah, so simple.
Yeah, right. It's so
Yeah, it's
simple.
like so simple. Piece of cake.
I think it's not always easy though to question your own belief system. I think that's probably where I know I've personally struggled, and I'm probably other people too.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I think that goes back to like what we were saying before. Sometimes it's hard to just like, be present and also see the ways in which you're like maybe projecting or whatever you're doing. It's sometimes hard to see that. And then I think also too, there's like, I think we just talked about this. There's a cognitive dissonance where literally like you, based on the parenting that you received, so like through, okay, I was gonna say it's like through no fault of your own. Like you did it, but like your brain was mush at the
Mm-hmm.
time, you know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
like you made these like decisions that then governed like the way in which your nervous system takes in information, the way in which you think.
Yeah,
And
it just goes to like the deep conditioning that we have of like, okay, how was I thinking at 2 years old? What was I being told then? And then you gotta like, you know, it's you only have a memory of it, right?
well, what happens is like if we use a map, like Dr. Sam shares with us, the coping styles, these things that were conditioned or programmed into us or that we chose, like, because I mean, we do have some responsibility there, uh, are like the little patterns that then get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then that's what we're going to see in the I have to do this job and I don't want to do it. Right? That's
Mm-hmm.
like when you were younger, your parents were like, Nick, I don't give a shit. What you want, you're going to do that.
Right.
Nick, I don't care. You do this. What I
Right.
say goes. Why?
Right.
Because I say so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like I don't know. Maybe that it seems to be like normal parenting style, but it doesn't mean like it's effective, right?
Oh yeah, but I mean that's also going to be like a kind of like cultural thing, like the way people parent. Now, um, like it's more common to validate your children's emotions, where it used to be like boys don't cry, you get what you get, and you don't get upset. Big girls don't cry, stop being a crybaby. Like those things are slowly changing.
I think that's a Pink song.
Which one?
Big girls don't cry,
Big
something like
girls
that.
don't
Yeah,
cry.
they were like
Oh
playing out
yeah,
my
it
job the
is.
other day, and I was
Big
thinking
girls
about you.
don't cry. Yeah, I think it is.
But yeah, totally. Going back to what you're saying.
Yeah, so like you don't have to know all the decisions you made. You could actually, like, if you kind of like analyze your current behavior or feelings or problems or patterns that you're noticing, that could give you the insight into what that was like when you were younger.
Mm,
All right, I think it's almost time to wrap up.
it is. It is.
Yeah. I want to share one thing.
Yeah.
Because the topic of the day was to share our plant medicine insights. And so I had one. This is actually pretty cool. So I had one. It was on a mushroom ceremony, and I had read this book. I just recently read this book called Stillness Touch, and in it, the author argues that there's this I forget how he calls it. I forget the words he used. There's this thing that happens where you kind of like turn off from, he calls it, I think he calls it eros in the book, but he just means like love, right? Like all that's good. Um, and so I read that book. And then I had this plant medicine ceremony where in the ceremony I realized that when I was younger, I thought or I realized when I was younger that I thought that my love was destructive. So like I shut off like loving things.
Mm.
And so I had that insight, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, but like I don't want to forget this. I have to do something with this." And I didn't I was just kind of like keeping that somewhere in here. I had to do something with this. And then I had this kind of a ceremony where it wasn't even my intention, but it was like, oh, this is what you do. I was like, okay, thanks. So like I got a tool to how to practice love, the feeling of loving or of love or like heart feelings.
It's a very beautiful insight from your cannabis ceremony. Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's super insightful too about, you know, understanding that early conditioning and seeing maybe the fallacy in it and
yeah. Oh yeah, big
doing something
fallacy.
new.
Yeah. You know what I thought was cool though at the time when I had it? I'm like, oh wait, I just not that I chose wrong. It was just like just slightly off base. 'Cause not that my love is destructive, but I think it is like so powerful in a way that it could transform stuff. So not necessarily like destruct, but maybe like reconstruct.
There you go. I like
So
that
I was like, oh
reframing.
God, I was just like just a little off base.
Raina Maria just opening the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, I just want to share that.
Well, thank you for sharing. That was like it was beautiful insight.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing all of yours. It's so great, like all that you're learning and all that you can receive and share with other people. It's so important to, I think it's important to create safety for other people.
Yeah, I know.
I
I just
mean,
definitely.
it's important to
Sorry.
do it for yourself, but then like being that and then being able to like bring that into space.
Yeah, and I just want to give my gratitude to you and
And not so boxy about it. Like it doesn't have to be so boxy.
no, no boxes here in the
Yeah,
universe.
yeah, no box. No boxes. Get rid of all the boxes. I only want it if it's a round box.
No
Have you ever,
squares.
yeah, have you ever seen a round box?
I've never seen a round box.
I've seen like a cylindrical one.
I don't think I've ever even seen that.
Oh, really? Like a poster, something that a poster would come in?
Poster.
Like a tube?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, no, yeah, I've seen those.
Like an oatmeal container, you've probably seen that.
Yep, earlier today.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening,
Thank you
watching.
for listening.
Let us know in the comments what you thought or what you took away or what your most recent realizations or inspirations or insights have been from your plant medicine ceremonies. Share our video and subscribe. Did I say all the things?
We're good, I
All
think.
right, we're good. Bye.
Bye.